Hey everybody, how we doing today? So, welcome to the All About the Bait Foundry. So basically what this is my lead pouring setup I use to make the snagging hooks, the jig heads for my grouper rigs, and for my personal use, egg sinkers. So in today's video, I'm just going to kind of walk you through all the different components so you have an idea of my setup. And then in future videos, I'm going to do specific ones on specific molds for specific designs, which I can find kind of helpful for those people that are into pouring their own leads. So check it out. At the heart of my system is this Lee Pro 4-20. It's basically a 20-pound melting pot with a spout for pouring the lead. There's quite a few different models of Lees. You've got the most basic version is similar to basically like it's a melting spoon. So you basically have a heating element into a large kind of spoon, and then it melts the lead, and then once it's melted you pour that into your mold and just repeat. You also have just the standard melting pot only without the spout, and that's primarily used for cleaning and processing lead. So you can get the old wheel weights, old expended bullets. You can get the lead sheets from construction, melt those down. Those tend to be kind of a dirty lead. So you can basically use that melting pot to melt it and then flex it and clean it. And then you could basically scoop out the clean lead, pour into your molds, or a lot of times they use that to create ingots, basically, that then can be either sold or used for production later. Then there's also a 10-pot version, which is basically the same setup, but just with a little bit less capacity. This 20-pound, and I'm not sure if they go bigger than that. I went with the larger one because I do kind of high volume, so it's a lot easier not having to continually add lead and cleaning it and going through. So that's the only reason why I purchased this one. Now the way this basically works, it has a standard wall plug, 110 volt. You have a temperature gauge, so you can vary the heat, which is kind of important. Not so much for the stuff I'm doing, but if you're doing casting bullets or anything that has to be kind of consistent, you want to have something that you can kind of gauge your heat there. So that makes it nice. I basically start on the higher setups when I'm just initially starting to get this melted down, then turn it back down to 6 or 7 when I'm actually pouring. Basically underneath, this is the basic spout there, where the lead comes out. These are not really meant to be used contaminated lead. You kind of want to start with the clean lead because of that spout. The risk of contamination is high on that spout, and it'll cause a lot of problems when you're pouring, because if you don't have a really good flow, it gums up the mold and then you have bad pours. So basically, once I've got this heated up, I've got some lead started in it. I basically leave an inch or 2 of lead in there when I store it. That'll protect the spout from getting contaminated. And then I'll fill this up with melted lead, then do a cleaning on it, and then I'll start pouring on it, because you can see that there's all this crud buildup here that needs to be removed. This has basically a lever action, so you basically lift up, that opens up the pour spout, and then the lead pours out. It's got a little set screw that you can turn, and then that creates space in the stopper here, and that will gauge how much you can open up the spout and let lead in. So that's kind of what controls the amount of lead flow. This here is basically just a helper for holding on to your mold, so you can just basically slide it in rather than trying to freehand it and then just kind of be shaky about it. But very basic setup there, but so far it's worked fairly well. I've done about 40 pounds of lead, about 50 pounds of lead so far, and having no real problems once you get a few of the tricks in place. The next key component are the actual molds. These are all Do It brand molds. Very basic. Just open them up, you can kind of see this orifice here is where the lead is going to be filled up to. you have a little gap here. That's where the hook is actually placed. And then you got a relief here for the eye of the hook. This one is for my 2.0 snag hook. So the eye will go there, the neck of the hook will go there, and then the prongs will be sticking out, and then I'll fill up right to the top there, and it's basically done. So they have basically aluminum molds, wooden handles to keep them cool so you can handle them. And yeah, basically there I've got the 2.0 snag hook. This is for my bullet head jig heads that I use for my grouper rigs. So that's 1 ounce, 1.5, and 2 ounce. This one is for my egg sinkers. I've got a 1 ounce on one side and then 1.5 ounce on the other, as well as the pull pin. That's what creates the hole in the egg sinker so you could fit your line through it. Then this one here is my 5.0 snag, and that one here is my 8.0 snag. Next, we've got basically the lead I'm using. Like I said, I'm using basically clean lead to start with to prevent the contaminants foiling the spout there. So I've got these little lead ingots. Try to buy a little bit higher volume so I get the prices down on those. Next, I've got all the different style hooks. These are going to be snag hooks that I'm going to be doing today. So these are all 8/0 snag treble hooks. I've got 5/0 standards, and then I've got 5/0 Duratins. So that's basically your raw materials that you need, is the lead and the hooks. And then you can add some different wiring if you're doing weights or specific lures as well. Now for safety wise, basically I've got my safety glasses, got some leather gloves, and I've got my fan for blowing the fumes away. So that's kind of my safety setup there. Now the accessory equipment that I use, basically I've got a nice pair of compounding cutters there, make it a little bit easier to cut through the excess lead when I want to trim them. I've got a small screwdriver, and that's for adjusting the spout release there. I have just a plain old serrated knife, which is good for cleaning leads off of the jigs when they're done, or if I need to do any scraping. Basically, I've got a paper clip with a little L bent into it and then attached to some vice grips. I use that to clean the spout off to make sure that I'm getting a good pour. Anytime you get any blockages, it'll cause a disruption in the pour, and then that means you'll have a bad pour, and then it just causes problems. So after every couple of pours, I'll go through and just kind of run that through the spout, and then that tends to knock out anything blockage or anything that's causing problems there. I've got a candle for two purposes. One is for basically putting a little bit of a quick release barrier, so it's basically smoking the part that's holding the lead, and it's like spraying PAM on your frying pan. It'll help prevent it from sticking, so it'll release easier there. Also, I'll use the wax for when I'm cleaning the lead as a fluxing agent. So basically, lead is so dense, all the contaminants, even other metals, will tend to float to the surface. You can use wax, you could use paper. There's actual compounds specifically for it you can buy. You could use sawdust. But basically all that it does is that it binds those contaminants to whatever your fluxing agent is, and then it makes it coagulate, and then it allows you to basically skim off the top and then throw it away a lot easier. So that's kind of what it does. So got my lighter for lighting that. Next we've got my basically a little scooper here. These are kind of made for actually pouring lead, but I'm just using it to kind of scrape the edges when I'm cleaning, if I need to pull little old contaminants out. Also have a spoon that I use for that. It's just got a little bit of a flatter profile, so I could scoop out a little bit portions. Plus the lead itself will drain through these, so it's kind of a siphon. Have a little bit of a can for all my garbage contaminants there to collect those. Below all this, I have basically a metal plate that'll protect the particle board surface there. Far to the left and all around here, I have a bunch of pans that I put the completed jigs on. This one I'll use just to dump the finished jig onto here while it cools. and then I have these smaller pens that I'll separate them out to the separate ones, so it makes it easier for when I'm packaging and selling them. And that's basically all the different tools that I use. Now here's the completed items that I pour. So starting on front, we've got the bullet head jigs here. I've got them in 1 ounce, 1.5, and 2 ounces. These I specifically made to be mated with my 8-inch glow curly tail grubs, and these are my grouper rigs that I've got. So sell those separately or as a combined sample pack. Then we've got my snagging rigs, the Mullet Snagger 2000, the Mullet Snagger 5000, and the Duratin hook, which is just a little bit more saltwater corrosion resistant. Then I've got the 5000 in a standard, and then I've got the 8000, which is the 8/0 treble. You have 1/2 ounce, 1 ounce, 1.5 ounce. And then for my own personal use, I use egg sinkers a lot for when I'm doing a bottom fishing. So I've got 1 ounce and 1.5 ounce. Future additions, I'll probably add more to my snagging hook lineup, just so I have the other sizes. There's a 3/0 and a 4/0 because I have the 2 and 5, and then there's goes 6 and 7 because I have the 8, and then there's a 10 and a 12, which are basically used for either alligator crocodile hooks or for bridge fishing, and to use them to snag the fish to hoist up to the bridge. So I just want to have like kind of the majority of the selection all in the one place, versus most of the time people are just selling the one size that they have and that's it. So I'll probably add to that. I don't know if I'll do more jig heads, possibly for bucktail jigs, but production stuff I'll tend to leave to my production facility. I do very high volume, and I don't want to spend my own personal time because it's not worth it to do a lot of these. These were kind of made because I couldn't really find anybody that could do volumes of the snagging hooks. Then I figured since I was selling the grubs, I wanted a max shooting component, so I did those. And these are hard to, these sizes 1 ounce to 2 ounce are hard to find because they're always sold out everywhere and they're expensive. So I figured since I've got the setup, I might as well pour my own. So I'll probably add like a 2 and 3 ounce as well, and just have a full selection for myself. So those are probably future ones that I'll add. But outside of that, all my other jig heads, I have basically a $250,000 machine work with $1,000 molds that can do injection molds for lead, and that they could do high volumes. So I do order my yellowtail jigs 25,000 at a time, so I'm not going to be hand pouring those. Same with my Cobra jig heads and the fish head jig heads as well. I just do too much volume to try to hand pour them. So just select options I'll probably do here. Now, price wise for all this stuff, because everybody kind of wants to know if it's worth it for them to do it. The Pro 420, I spent around 90 bucks for it. You can get them on eBay for $90 to $100 every day there. The molds, they run roughly between $40–45 new, and then you can get used ones for about $30–35. You just got to make sure the type of condition, because you do have clearances and tolerances. They have to be fairly tight for these to work good. Lead wise, I'm paying roughly around $1.75 a pound. This last batch I bought 66 pounds in order to get that pricing. I think on smaller batches, on averages, you're looking at around $2.50 to $3 to $4 per pound. The more you buy, the cheaper it gets, of course. Lead is getting very expensive because of the raw materials are harder to get these days. Plus with the coronavirus, more people are doing home style crafts, so lead pouring has become very popular during the lockdowns. Little cutters here, I think I paid $15. These are a little bit better than normal clippers, but I wanted good ones, so it does a nice flush cut there. Regular tools that I've got there. I think I paid for, this is an actual Lee spoon there, so I paid 10 bucks for that. Otherwise a freebie from the I've had in the old junk drawer, dollar store. All the pans were $1 from the dollar store. I bought a lot of stuff from the dollar store. The sheet that I put down just to kind of protect the wood, I think I got that Home Depot for around $6. I remember this can was 83 cents from Home Depot. I remember that. So that's basically my costs that I've got involved with this. Like I said, you can start out with just the heated ladle for around 40 bucks. But for $40, $50 more, you can have a production pot. So for me, it was just worth it to step it up. Just on the snagging hooks, I've sold enough to basically pay for everything. So right off the bat, it was a good investment for me. Now, another important question that'll come up is it worthwhile for me to pour my own jig heads and weights and lures and so forth? Meaning you guys. Well, I would break it down into a few different categories. I would say one, if you're the weekend warrior, or maybe you only get out once a month or not very often because it's just you're too busy and you don't have the free time, I'd say don't worry about it. Just go to your local tackle shop, buy the stuff that you need, and take that saved time and go fishing more often. It's just not worthwhile if you're not going to be using it a lot. Second one would be the DIYers, the crafters, the people that are out there hand building their own rods. They're the ones tying their own flies, the ones that take pride in catching a fish with their own equipment. Okay, these are perfect options for it. Yeah, you're not getting quite the cost benefit, but that pride outweighs the cost for it. You catch that fish with a jig head that you poured and you painted and you tied, okay, and that pride issue makes up for that extra cost value for it. Okay. The third factor would be if you want a specific output, you want a specific lure, you want a specific jig head, and you really can't just buy it off the shelf. Okay. Pouring your own leads will allow you to customize things, the specific weights, the certain kind of hooks, and then once you've got it poured, you can paint them the certain color that you want, add the certain color bucktails on it, add the certain bells and whistle to it so it's exactly how you want it. So that would be important there. Fourth would be the cost benefit for it. So if you are a high volume fisherman or even a low volume fisherman, but you lose a lot of equipment. So let's say that you fish an area that is very rocky and you got a bottom fish and you're just breaking stuff off left and right in order to catch fish. You need to sit down and weigh the cost for buying the equipment and how much the net cost will be for making that certain lure or jig head versus the cost of buying it at a tackle shop. You'll find that it's quite inexpensive to actually produce them once you factor out the cost of the equipment versus how much the tackle shop marks those up. Okay, and you can find out you might pay it off in a month or 6 months or a year, and then after that, it's basically you're saving money every time that you make your own, and the cost savings add up quite quickly. Next would be the production, where kind of like I fit into. I have the company, so I kind of want to resell things. I have All About the Bait, so I was looking for those snagging hooks, kind of catch your own bait. It falls hand in hand there. But when I go out and I try to find a supplier for it, I find there's a few different companies or people individually selling them, but it's small quantities, 1, 3, 5, maybe 20 of them. But I'm looking for thousands of them, and they're just not set up to do that. So I can't really get that supply. But then I know I'll sell a ton of them. So then I looked at the cost for me actually doing them myself, factoring those in, the type of volume I do, and it was a no-brainer for me to go ahead and just buy all that equipment, start producing my own. The first batch I've sold basically paid for itself, so now everything going forward is just straight profit for it. So it was definitely worthwhile for me to go ahead and do that. Same thing with the grouper rigs. I sell just the soft plastics, but then what? Then people have to find a jig head to match with that. They're definitely going to need it in order to use them. So I definitely need to sell though, because it'll go hand in hand. So I looked up, found a mold that would match a good a jig head for those specific weights, and I produce them myself. So that works out there. So that's where it kind of comes in hand in hand. If you think you have something that's a high volume that in your area that you can't find, you might find it's worthwhile. Egg sinkers. I can never find egg sinkers anywhere in the Keys. They're always sold out in the 1 ounce to 2 ounce versions of it. You go in, get a mold, go into a tackle shop, say, all I do is 1 and 2 ounce egg sinkers. Do you want some? I'm gonna say, yeah, okay. And boom, you've got your facility set up, and you can start building them up after that and making money at it. So always an option there. All right, so that's the All About the Bait Foundry, or my lead pouring system there. Hopefully you found it interesting. Like I said earlier, I'll be doing some more individual videos, but more specifically about specific molds. I think there'll be more of a reference tool for those people that are going to be using that specific mold, so just kind of helpful tips and so forth. But I will definitely be adding to my arsenal, and as I do that, I'll add to some more pouring videos. But otherwise, thanks for watching, and I will see you next video. Bye.